Welcome to another episode of Soldier vs. Historian. Today we are examining from the soldier's perspective the typography of the civilian military historian. This is to say, we are going to classify civilian historians. I assert the fact that those who have served in the military know more about the military than any civilian. From the soldier's perspective, the military aspect of a, quote, military historian is neutralized. With this in mind, the next question follows. What is left by way of topic that these civilian historians can choose to write about? First, though, we'll connect another thread. In our last episode, we mentioned the civilian historian's denial of the difference between strategy and tactics. This is a necessary statement, something a public speaking instructor might insist on as part of the historian's so-called confidence step with the intended audience. After all, what kind of civilian would ever have any experience or training in battlefield strategy and tactics? It only follows that to have any confidence in what they are saying, civilian historians must be clear about their lack of military service. The enactment and respect of this confidence step is where I draw the line between proper historian and random commenter. A proper historian will acknowledge their shortcomings. A random commenter will do the exact opposite and fill that void with exaggeration and what we Americans like to call tall tales. Anyone who is unclear in regard to their lack of military service runs the risk of being seen by others as a soldier or even a military officer, and such false airs and pretensions are a topic in and of themselves and something I plan uncovering at a later date. YouTube is riddled with such sources. For now, though, we will limit our examination to book writing historians. An historian, by denying the difference between strategy and tactics, asserts both their alternate and their individual character and must apply these mixed characteristics to their chosen battlefield problem. Despite the historian's individuality, their work must, by topic, slot into a short list of well-worn, time-honored traditions. In this way, the so-called professional historian is in reality a double amateur, being neither a professional soldier nor a professional in the tradition they parrot next to their observations of that tradition in the military. You would think that most people would recognize the absurdity of a non-soldier discussing battle. However, this conventional wisdom is sadly upset by the academic historian whose job description includes the creation of myth by way of the historical illusion. History to such academics is the practice of replacing a historical myth with a new historical illusion. This practice is something of a touchstone for academic historians. Anything they disagree with is myth to be dispelled, and the historians supplanting illusions are the only thing they are capable of seeing. It is an exercise in futility to question an civilian historian about their fast-held illusions, even as the truth is always larger than mythical illusion. In his work, Rogue Heroes, historian Ben McIntyre makes a mea culpa, stating his own intentions whilst pinning them to a subject. To quote from page 26, "This is an almost perfect Sterling story, containing the characteristic admixture of self-deprecation, bluff, and imprudence, describing an act of daring crowned with unlikely success, while taking a swipe at the military bureaucracy he disdained. It has the patina of a tale polished, told, and retold after dinner. It might be true, or partly true." This comment is a confident flourish and an admission on the part of a civilian military historian that their work is the business of myth-making. The more I read history, the more I find mea culpas such as this one in works written by civilians. It goes without saying that a soldier's job is located in or near a field, and a historian's job is located at or near a dinner table. I can only assume that this fact is what gives McIntyre the confidence to assert that this is the sort of behavior, bluff and imprudence, swipe at the military bureaucracy, might be true or partly true, is what historians do at dinner parties. I would describe such behavior as something other than mere patina. Any soldier reading the works from a civilian author must initially file the work's observations and comments and discourse under the classification questionable source. As I pointed out in episode 4, historians serve a higher purpose outside of and unrelated to the military. This video will explore what this means by examining the various avenues that works by non-soldier historians take. This list purposely ignores the biography category. It is not uncommon for civilian military historians to indulge more than one of these categories at any one time. In order of relevance, then, the avenues available to the civilian historian are as follows. This is the typology of military historians. Broadly speaking, half this list is potentially useful and the other half outright worthless. The most useful and relevant guise for the civilian historian is that of the engineer. The engineer talks about technology itself and therefore requires little to no pretense when talking about equipment that just happens to be used by the military, the shared concern simply being a working technological solution. However, the military insistence on reliance does appear to baffle many minutiae-obsessed historians playing the engineer. What is best for procurement and the reasons behind the choices for procurement often completely misunderstood by historians obsessed with singular data points or limited subsets of data. I must stress that the infantry branch has a different and arguably unique relationship to technology that differs greatly from the Navy or the Air Force and even from the Army's own combat support. However, this complex procurement, employment, deployment discussion is for another time. Some civilian historians will hang a 10-gallon hat on the engineering angle. A great example of this laughable hat hanging is Eric Schlosser's book, Command and Control. On the cover of it, Schlosser appears to be talking about military matters, and in fact, he is citing a military incident. However, the higher purpose of the work is readily apparent, the illusion of safety. Schlosser's purpose is nothing short of shading the military mind, to imply that all military, and even the one that protects him, is somehow, quote, unsafe. Whatever it is he means by that word, as his audience clearly no longer lives at the time of the incident examined by the book. Such military historians playing the engineer become insufferable whenever they reveal their lack of genuine knowledge, be that either military or engineering knowledge. And once these two inadequacies have been unmasked, what is there for the author's judgment to be based on? Cheese? Wallpaper paste? Marbles? Earwigs? A close second on the useful list is the historian acting as judge. Indeed, how else do you describe the act of weighing up the evidence, and what else is history but recorded facts? A great example of this well-judging book is Bodyguard of Lies by Anthony Cave Brown, a book that is not without its share of controversies. Still, regardless of the controversy, it is a book that belongs on the shelf. However, the truth is, books like Bodyguard of Lies are rare. More often than not, civilian historians sink and float on military matters rather than flow with them. Some historians even couch legal systems as a way to deflect from offering genuine judgment. John Keegan, at the end of his first chapter, In the Face of Battle, proffers the reader a false dilemma between two differing legal systems in which to examine military history. This impertinent discussion of legal systems serves no other purpose than to inform the reader that Keegan is, like a lawyer, taking sides from the outset. It should come as no surprise to anyone reading Keegan that he exhibits marked hostility towards the professional soldier's methods, descriptions, and maps about battle. Keegan thus objectifying soldiers in the military rather than judging them. This objectification, the natural result from Keegan's personal dislike of the military life and what the military does. The truth is, Keegan invented the perverse historical genre of the anti-soldier, pro-military mythologist. A well-written history makes concise judgments built from realistic interpretations of the available evidence. However, no matter how great or how numerous the evidence, gaps will exist between the facts. Third on the useful list, and the one with the greatest potential to inadvertently harm, is that of the historian as priest. How the facts are connected together necessarily entails a certain reliance on metaphors, figures of speech, and creative language. A priest, by definition, treats story, legend, and metaphor with study, forethought, and gravitas. The priest makes their sermon religious and not novelistic or poetic. The priest's job is to unpack the language that connects the facts together, to help others make the connections between the supposedly disparate facts. Examples include Robert Kaplan's Warrior Politics and Thomas Cahill's Sailing the Wine Dark Sea. How the facts are connected is a major undiscussed topic in the liberal arts curriculum, and the major difference between the well-respected historian as priest and a dubious historian as novelist is found in how these historians treat the creative space between the facts. Please bear this in mind as we now turn our attention to historians who actively hamper constructive dialogue between soldiers and civilians. Is a drunken priest really a priest? I think most people would agree a drunken priest is no longer of the right mind to carry out their work, and if they are a habitual drunkard, then they should be defrocked. In general, anyone whose purpose is entertainment as opposed to somber, critical, professional assessment should not be granted the status endowed by the latter behavior. Historians who fictionalize are not historians. They are entertainers and should be treated as such. For some reason, it seems to have become common practice for academic historians to, quote, use their imaginations in regard to the military. This practice is as laughable as it is insidious. How do these, quote, historians expect to extrapolate anything close to the truth if they have no idea what it is like to live the military life? What makes this situation all the more bemusing is the fact that these historians, as novelists, always make a dramatic show of calling out the same practice of novelization in their forebears. John Keegan himself, seemingly unaware of his own crouching historian, hidden novelist approach to the subject, as he goes on a spiritual quest to find the so-called face of battle. Keegan has inspired an unfortunate, if not dangerous, trend. The historian playing the novelist thrives between the facts. Such novelists choose to connect the facts with incorrect or misleading flourish and prose. Many of these dubious civilian military historians are by profession classicists, historians of Rome, and occasionally archaeologists. In any case, their disrespect for the human, both past and present, that is the soldier, is worn on their sleeve. Adrian Goldsworthy. Is he a historian or a novelist? Amazon treats him as a novelist, and I, as an army of one, will never accept Goldsworthy as anything more than a novelist. Anyone willing to fictionalize in novels is just as likely, if not more so, to fictionalize in academic literature. We know precious little about the Roman military as it is. We are well down into the pulp at this point. It's bad enough for someone to novelize battle, but these next three historians' masks are actually a bit worse. They take the often drunken act of a historian's novelization down another step. Meet the propagandists. Most reasonable people will agree that so-called historians engaged in these behaviors are not doing proper history. After all, how might a reasonable person describe the person who creates recruitment posters? The problem only intensifies should those posters become animated. Art and drama demand certain things that are at odds with the practice of proper history. The Vietnamese famously reenacted the Battle of Dien Bien Phu, and I see all reenactors and reenactments in this same light. Winning the battle just isn't enough for some people, notably liberal arts educated historians. There is a special place reserved for those who sink to this level. Anti-soldier. This behavior is emblematic of a conscientious objecting historian attempting to overlay their civilian politics, bias, and opinion over a battle that is by definition military. In my experience, even the best of historians occasionally lapse into the unanswerable assertion, if only. If only the general had more troops. If only the Americans did that. If only the Americans did this, etc., etc., etc. For those unfamiliar with the term, quarterback refers to the prime position, the field leader, in an American football team. Big games are often played on Sunday. A Monday morning quarterback is someone who, quote, just happened to watch the game and thinks they know more about the game than the actual quarterback. The Monday morning quarterback is inflexible in the extreme, and it is fruitless to call them out or even question their assertions about battle. They have read it all, and the conclusion they have reached is the right stuff. A Monday morning quarterback is to be avoided at all costs.